Fire Emblem Fates' story is a mess. I don't think that's news to anybody. It has its ups, it has its downs, and it has a lot more downs. Conquest is a really fun game. It's my second favorite FE game, in fact, but there are plenty of video essays, I'm sure, ripping the story apart. But this video essay is a little different, because I want you to join me on a journey back to 2015, before Fire Emblem Fates released. I want to tell you about a video game that's yet to come out, which has one of the best setups I have ever seen. Let's talk about Fire Emblem Fates' tremendous potential. Everyone's heard the story of Fire Emblem Awakening to death by now, right? Intelligent Systems was told their precious series was going to be executed, and they had one game left. So, they made Fire Emblem Awakening, or Kakuse, which was a final love letter to the series, involving several references to past games. It was its own game first, though, and the endearing, lovable, and surprisingly deep cast was ultimately what likely won fans over, along with the colorful art style and enjoyable character designs. The story had moments of depth, but it wasn't trying to be deep. It was enjoyable and tense, and when the characters went through hardship, you could feel it too. Fire Emblem Awakening was a good, fun game, and people really resonated with it. It sold better than any of the games that came before it, and as a result, IS got to continue the series. We were all having fun with Fire Emblem Awakening, and then on January 14th, 2015, they hit us with this. The latest in the Fire Emblem series. What a great title! It would unfortunately be later changed to Fire Emblem If and Fire Emblem Fates Overseas, but that didn't stop our hype. As a side note, I like to theorize when presented with information relevant to me, and I still remember my theory about this game's plot based on the first trailer. I mean, it's way off, but when else am I going to get to share this? I thought that this guy, Marx, who would later of course be localized to Xander, was going to be the main lord. I don't remember what this translates to directly, but I remember it being something along the lines of, "How could this be? Father could not be responsible for this evil." Which I interpreted as this being the main character who was growing to learn his father was corrupt and standing against him. Furthermore, you can see how this scene transitions into a painting, which made me believe that this war that was being depicted was ancient history. I believed Ryoma here was actually a legendary hero of old, the same samurai depicted in the portrait, and that he had ended up in present time somehow through time travel or magic, some fantasy shenanigans like that. In hindsight, he certainly has a different design, but I figured it was close enough to be plausible. I figured this character would be against Marx's father, which would cause him to be an antagonist for most of the game until Marx saw the error of his father's ways, at which point they would team up and face his father in the climax. Now, I was wrong. So you can kind of see the A to B there, right? People would eventually put the pieces together that this someone choking Azura, or Aqua, was likely the Avatar, but I had no reason to believe that the Avatar would be the Lord, given that in the prior two games, the Avatar had basically been the Lord's right hand. But enough about that, because it's not important. Getting confirmation about a new game was exciting, but it wasn't anything close to the hype that would come from the next trailer, released on April 1st, 2015. April 1st? Really? Maybe this was a warning sign. This trailer, the Fire Emblem Choose Your Path trailer, is still unparalleled in my opinion as the best trailer to any video game I have ever seen. The pacing is perfect, the music adds to the tension so well, it introduces concepts in such a clear and concise way, it is so good. The trailer opens on this gentle, somber tone as the blue-haired woman sings on a lonely pier, and the music stops for a brief moment, only to pick back up as the tempo rises. All the while, super important looking text is on the screen. This is the trailer that made me think about how amazing this game could genuinely be. I loved Awakening at the time, and this trailer made it look like this game's story could completely eclipse Awakening's writing. The gauntlet had been thrown and the game's themes were clear. You were at the center of two warring kingdoms, and you have family in both. This isn't some baby game where you can make everyone high-five their problems away. There are clearly deep-seated issues here dividing these two kingdoms, and you have to pick one side. It's such a brilliant setup, and as the trailer flashes between these two different timelines that all hinge on your choice, seeing your older brothers condemning your decision as well as seeing the blue-haired woman's attire changing to reflect your choice, you start to believe that this game will actually have meaningful choices. Your choices might actually matter in this game. Not like in a Telltale game where they pretend it matters. You will make choices that will impact thousands of lives, and no matter what you choose, you're going to end up fighting your own family. After this trailer, the expectations are past the moon. They've created such a perfect setup that it is seemingly impossible for them to fall on their face with it. Even giving us a mediocre story with such an amazing setup would still be a phenomenal experience. As another side note, I remember this trailer released on the same day as the first real TMS trailer, Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE, and the reception was like night and day. I enjoyed TMS a lot, so I'm not saying this out of any sort of dissatisfaction with the game, and I wasn't put off by the trailer. But the Fates trailer did such a splendid job creating a compelling tone and an enrapturing narrative. Meanwhile, the TMS trailer was a little too weeby. Funny to say given the anime art style of FE as well, but the TMS trailer kind of leaned a little too much on the anime, you know? It's just funny to look back on now, to think that the Fates trailer really did everything right, and at least at the time it really stole the show.
Life beyond the shore, just out of reach. Yet the waters ever change, flowing like time. The path is yours to try.
You are my child now.
Then the third major trailer came, the first one in English. I don't know what it is about this trailer, but something is just, it's always been a little off to me. I don't know if it's the tone, the pacing, or what, but after the masterpiece that was the second trailer, this trailer kind of fell a little flat. It was still interesting. It had a lot of intense looking action and visuals, but something just felt a little off. It almost seemed like it was trying to mimic the intense tone of the second trailer, even opening the same way, but it just didn't quite hit as well. And I'm not a guy who's all about subs or anything. In fact, I pretty much always prefer English dubs in video games when they're available. I really love English voice acting, so I don't think that was a big factor, if one at all. I don't know, but I definitely found myself going back to the second trailer more often when I wanted to hype myself up for Fates' release. And eventually, release it did. And I said even a mediocre story with this setup would be an amazing experience. Well, it wasn't mediocre. I'm not here to talk overlong about the result, though. That's been done to death. You should play the games, inform yourself on its flaws through others if need be, and come to your own conclusions about the writing. I know that I really had a bad opinion about this game's writing shortly after release because it was such a disappointment after how excited I was, but ever since then, my opinion has softened a bit. Nowadays, I generally think the people who act like this is the worst writing of all time are kind of over-exaggerating a bit, but it's pretty bad. Especially Rev, like, what were they thinking? You know, at the time they revealed Revelation would exist, I didn't think it was the worst idea ever. How naive I was. I did worry that having a route where everyone joins together would cheapen the experience of the other two, but I felt confident that the writing would be handled well enough that it wouldn't be a big issue. How naive I was. Fire Emblem Fates had tremendous potential. I still think it had by far the best setup of any Fire Emblem game. It just really fell flat on its face with the delivery, and that's a shame. While I do think it has some strong moments, like the writing after Kitsune's lair, for example, too often does the game treat you like a toddler or just fall into typical writing pitfalls and cliches. Eventually, Fire Emblem fans would get a game with multiple routes and compelling story once the series came to the Switch. And people loved it so much that they're still arguing about it to this day. Hooray! But maybe that's a topic for another day. Thank you all for watching. I genuinely hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to leave a like. I don't know if it does anything, but it makes me feel good, so that's nice. And I genuinely hope you have a fantastic day. Try to go do something productive with your life. I will try to do the same.